I'm doing good. Thanks for presenting for us.
It's a pleasure for us to be here. We're so excited, and because with the last couple of months, everyone I'm sure has just been spending so much time online and so many online meetings, but yet all these folks are here to join us today and have another meeting. So Rachel and I wanted to add a little bit more of an engagement composure. So what we have here is a website that you can access on your computer or on your phone or a tablet, any digital device. So what you would do is you would go to joinpd.com, and it's going to ask you how you're doing, and it's going to ask you to please submit this code here, TPZ space BAM. So again, you would go to joinpd.com, and the password is TPZ space BAM. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to actually engage with our PowerPoint presentation. And this is a great tool for classrooms as well. So hopefully you'll be able to get a little bit of an experience with this technology, and it might be something you would be interested in your own schools. Okay, so we have people that are connecting. I'm going to go ahead and start the class. However, the password will be in the upper corner of the presentation. So that way, for folks that are joining us, they'll continue to be able to enter into the course. Okay, so again, the password, the TPZBAM, is in the corner for those that are still logging in on their phone, computer, or any other digital device. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Krista, and my coworker here is Rachel, and we are the co-founders of STEM Integrations. We're based out of Indianapolis, and in our work, we'll talk a little bit more in the end of the presentation of the different services that we provide at STEM Integrations. However, over the last several years, Rachel and I have worked together as faculty at a university, and we were interested in looking at STEM leadership. So the qualities, the characteristics, the skills that educational leaders, so superintendents, principals, program directors, teacher leaders, what are the strategies that those individuals need to navigate a school to build, design, and implement a robust and equitable STEM or STEAM program? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So for those of us who have gone through the Join PD, as you'll see, you have a little blue dot that's in the corner of your screen, and you can either use your mouse or your finger, and you can actually move your blue dot anywhere on that screen. So we have a prompt here. My school prepares students for college and career readiness. So you can drag your dot into the agree, disagree, or anywhere in between. So again, you can take your blue dot and you can move it anywhere in the screen. So you can either agree, disagree, or be somewhere in the middle with this statement. All right, so let's see where people are falling here. All right, so we have a number of people that agree, nobody disagrees, and everybody else is somewhere in the middle. So for someone that agrees that your school prepares students for college and career readiness, can you talk a little bit about that?
And Krista, just to let you know, they don't have access to their microphones, but they can type into the questions box and I
Yes,
can read them aloud.
that would be wonderful. Yes, please.
I'm not seeing anything in the questions box yet, but if you feel free to, if you're one of the agrees, type in your statement as far as why do you agree? All right, I'll continue to monitor the questions box, but it looks like nobody has typed anything yet.
Okay, well then we'll continue on. So what we wanted to talk about was the process of integrative STEM and STEAM education as a way to start building the college and career readiness in pre-K through 12 programs. And in thinking about integrative science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, so by having an integrated curricula, the research shows that students are able to identify and solve real-world problems. They have a greater capacity to collaborate and communicate with their peers. They're able to think critically about a problem or situation, particularly in authentic contexts, analyze the data to be part of a team of creative problem solvers, and exhibit new skills and ideas to be career and college ready upon the completion of their academic careers. So these are the types of goals that we're searching for as we're building a robust and equitable college and career readiness program. And in looking at what exactly are our students of today going into when they're looking at college and career readiness, so we certainly have a strong need for STEM careers. So for instance, through the National Science Board, we have approximately 26 million jobs that are going to require STEM knowledge and skills in future careers. And a lot of the schools here are now preparing for careers that certainly haven't even been created yet. For assessment, achievement in STEM discipline varies, but should address the content knowledge, the skills, and attitudes of STEM professionals. So in what ways can we start preparing students to think and do like scientists, technologists, engineers, artists, and mathematicians? For job selection, employers need employees who are STEM capable. And so there was a really interesting study that came out of Google a couple years ago, and they were looking at their hiring practices over the last 20 years or so, and looking at what were the characteristics of the individuals that they were hiring, that they were promoting, and that they were firing. And what they found was over the last several decades, the employees that were doing quote unquote the best in their organization were those that had the quote unquote soft skills. So those that were able to problem solve, use critical thinking, creative thinking, problem solving, collaborating with others, being able to appreciate different points of view and move forward. Instead of what you would think, which is those that have the strongest science or technology or engineering skills. So thinking about that college and career readiness, we're not only looking for students that are STEM capable in that they are good at math or they're good at science. We're also looking for those that are able to work collaboratively with others in and out of their fields. Looking at higher education, though, in the United States, so approximately 18% of bachelor's degrees were awarded in STEM fields in 2016. Approximately 16.4 million jobs will require a bachelor's degree or higher. And for the job offers, we're going to have a very strong demand in the workforce for those with diverse backgrounds in STEM fields. So in thinking about your own program, which stakeholders are involved in college and career readiness decisions? So we have several options here. We have school leaders, we have teachers, students, parents, community partners, or other. So you can take either your finger or your mouse and you can circle or leave some kind of a mark in the different stakeholders that are involved in college and career readiness in your program.
And Krista, while we're waiting, we did get a comment into the questions box regarding our last interaction. And they said, my school offers a cooperative education program that provides students the opportunity to develop employable skills as well as connect with college technical programs post-high school.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. So for in Indiana, actually, there are employability standards that schools are supposed to meet starting all the way in kindergarten. So that's wonderful that to hear that a school is able to start bridging this in so early. All right, so we'll go ahead and see what the responses look like here. So it looks like we have a lot of different stakeholders that are involved in college and career readiness decisions, which is fantastic. And so Rachel will be talking a little bit further on the importance of having this collaborative space for different stakeholders to be involved in the discussions regarding college and career readiness decisions. So in thinking about different stakeholders in these collaborative groups, in what ways are they able to provide support for integrative STEM programs and curricula? So in thinking about the organization as a whole, who are the educational innovators? Who are those that are thinking outside the box and thinking about solutions and how we're able to start innovating those college and career readiness to prepare students for the scientifically and technologically world that we live in? So certain stakeholders, we have school and district level leaders. We have teacher leaders. We have the community at large. So we have community partners and those that may not even necessarily be involved with community partnerships in the schools directly, but still have great ideas of how to move students forward in preparing for college and career readiness. We also have federal, state, local governments. And then we also have workforce agencies such as business and industry partners. So there's a lot going on in this slide, but Rachel and I wanted to describe what exactly integrative STEM looks like. And so we have three different categories here. We have STEM and STEAM, we have integrated STEM and STEAM, and we have integrative STEM and STEAM. And the reason why we wanted to take a moment and address this is because when you ask 100 principals, what is STEM education? You are going to get 100 different answers because STEM education doesn't necessarily have an operational definition across the board, and how it is, how it's seen, how it's valued can certainly vary from school to school, from district to district, and across from state to state. So here we have just a crystallized view of what exactly is integrative STEM and how we're planning on moving students towards those STEM capable citizens that we're looking for. So looking at STEM and STEAM, this is going to be intradisciplinary. So these are going to be science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics disciplines that are taught in their content silos. So for example, a biology teacher that is teaching biology. So that's our intradisciplinary distinction. Multidisciplinary is when we're going to start integrating different disciplines together. But in multidisciplinary, each discipline still has its own identity, but you're using these multiple identities together. So you may have, for instance, a biology teacher and a aerospace teacher that are working together, and each are bringing those disciplines to the table. In interdisciplinary, we're starting to see more of a melding of different disciplines. So for instance, we may have biology and we have aerospace, but we're looking at the biological aerospace components. We don't necessarily see a separation of those different disciplines. What we're looking for in integrative STEM is that transdisciplinary, and that's going to be the full melding of different disciplines together and create a very holistic exploration of STEM and STEAM for students. So by teaching in our content silos, we have students that are content capable. We have a student who's great at math, or we have a student who's really great in the visual arts. But what we're looking for is ultimately a STEM literate student and a student who's able to pick and use different strengths of these different disciplines in order to solve authentic real world problems. So ultimately, integrative STEM education is this development of 21st century interpersonal skills such as creative thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, communication, self-direction, adaptability, and again, that college and career readiness. Okay, so again, we have here one of our Pear Deck slides. Where is your school and the majority of your teachers in relation to that integrativeness? So we have here this grid where we have student-centered and we have teacher-centered. So teacher-centered is be the very traditional model where I'm going to stand in front of my students and lecture to them for an hour and they're going to absorb the information. Whereas a student-centered approach is the students are taking much more control of their learning, and they're going to be the ones that are helping to guide where the class is going as far as solving authentic problems. And then we have intradisciplinary, and if you remember from the previous slide, intradisciplinary is the content silo, one single discipline. Whereas with transdisciplinary, that's going to be a melding of multiple disciplines for a more holistic experience. So I can speak to my own experience. When I first started teaching, I was a high school science teacher in Virginia. I was definitely teacher-centered, and I was definitely very interdisciplinary. So I was teaching environmental sciences, and I stuck to environmental sciences. As I started learning more about project-based learning and problem-based learning, design-based learning, inquiry-based learning, all these other different types of pedagogical approaches, I started moving more towards the student-centered and transdisciplinary approach. Oh, that's great. We have lots of people in student-centered. That's fantastic. So in thinking about providing integrative STEM programming, even though it can occur in one classroom, so you could have a teacher leader who is very motivated and very passionate and is willing to go through a very innovative way of teaching and learning, thinking about integrative STEM programming as an entire organizational change is something that can be meaningful, impactful for students. However, this is not something that can be done overnight. So for example, looking at in the research, some different challenges would be scheduling, because you need to have time for collaboration amongst teachers and the community partners. And a lot of times the day is absolutely full. And so finding ways to modify the schedule can be something that needs to be taken into account. Another large challenge would be resources. So the funding, the current budget to be able to pursue these different pedagogical approaches such as project-based learning. Where are we going to be able to find the funding for these different activities? Same thing with the materials. Are the facilities set up well for students to be able to act and do like STEM professionals? Is there a makerspace or an innovation lab available? Or are these activities that need to be done in the classroom with the teachers? Next, we have stakeholder buy-in. So with integrative STEM, it is something that is different, and it's something that most of us growing up never really had an opportunity to experience. And so that modification from the status quo can be very challenging for teachers, because they're the ones that are going to be in the classroom implementing these practices, parents, students, and community partners. So for example, with my students when I was teaching, usually the months of August and September were extremely rough for us because they were high school students who had never had any kind of experience with project-based learning. And that open-endedness of what I was expecting was something that they weren't used to. They were used to having me guide them on what were the next steps. And so by having the teacher not tell them, it was something that was really uncomfortable for them at first. So it really took several months before I had their buy-in and they felt comfortable to really take some risk in their learning. For teacher training, so again, most of us growing up never had this kind of teacher training or teacher experience. And so having the professional learning invested to pursue project, design, inquiry, problem-based instruction that aligns so well with integrative STEM is something that needs to be taken into consideration. Looking at mandates, so high stakes testing, do we have the time to be able to have integrative STEM programming and have students do projects and have them have these wonderful, authentic experiences, but yet also meet the mandates that are already established? And then lastly, the equity piece. And so thinking about how all students have a voice and have their identities appreciated and cultivated within STEM. So one process to think about all of these challenges would be design thinking. So some people here may be familiar with the design thinking model and others may not be. So design thinking was coming out of the Stanford D School, and it's used in a lot of different industries, but it's really taken a life of its own in the education sector because it's a way for students to solve problems, and they're following a linear process to solve problems. But the first step for a student to solve a problem is empathy, which is so incredibly important for our students to have a sense of empathy to try to solve a problem for some end user. So to empathize with someone, to try to want to help this person or situation, they're going to have to learn a lot about something. So that's where that content comes in, to be able to learn a lot about the, let's say, an environmental problem, or someone helping someone that has a need or a want. You need to, again, understand what they need. From there, the student would then define the problem. So with defining the problem, that student is saying, I have realized that this end user has a want or a need that I'm going to try to solve. And so by defining that problem, they move on to the ideation stage. The ideation stage is really brainstorming. So they're going to come up with as many ideas as they can, different solutions to solve the problem for the end user. Once they find a solution that they feel would be a strong solution, they go to the prototype and test phase, and they're going to go through, again, that process to see the solution, does it support the needs and the wants of the end user. So this would be something that we could certainly see in a STEM class, but this design thinking model can be incorporated at the organization level too, and thinking about students as the end users, teachers as the end users, parents and community partners as the end users. And as we, as educational leaders, can we go through this design thinking process to think about how we can continue to innovate our college and career readiness programs? So here's that design thinking process, and thinking about the organization level of building, designing, implementing college and career readiness programs. So for instance, thinking about teachers as the end users, and empathizing with teachers, because what do they need in order for us to have an integrative STEM culture? What do we need to get their buy-in? Well, a teacher need would be more time to co-plan and collaborate with their colleagues to implement integrative STEM. Because in integrative STEM, no one is perfect in every single discipline. People have strengths in other disciplines. So finding times for people to meet and talk about those strengths is incredibly important in moving the classroom forward. Okay, so there's our need. Time to co-plan and collaborate. So to define the problem, the end user, the teacher, needs a way to find time to collaborate because integrative STEM needs collaboration. So then as an educational leader, I can go through the ideate stages and think about different ways, different approaches that we could use to solve this problem of finding more time for teachers to co-plan. So these are just some examples. It's certainly not a inclusive list. Thinking about modifying the planning schedule, providing stipends for teachers to meet over the summer and start their co-planning and their collaboration, or supporting some kind of a digital platform such as Google Drive for teachers to share resources and still be able to communicate through the school day. So from here, once either one of these ideations or all of these ideations are implemented, they can be prototyped and they can be tested to see if it will work in building that integrative STEM programming. So the design thinking process for support staff. So for instance, thinking about counselors. These individuals also need a voice in how an integrative STEM program is going to be integrated into the school. So we would define the problem of how we would support the support staff in having a voice in integrative STEM programming, and then some potential solutions. We can invite, let's say, a counselor to the STEM leadership or an advisory team. We have a safe space for the support staff to provide feedback as integrative STEM programming is implemented. And then also finding opportunities for those individuals to collaborate with the teachers and to have a voice in the classroom, and thinking again of the different strengths that people are able to bring to the table. Thinking about students as an end user. So they need to engage in authentic and real world problems. So we've defined what the problem is, some ideations that we could potentially go with. So students could collaborate with community partners, and those community partners are experts in certain STEM fields. They can be exposed to a transdisciplinary curricula. So again, they're not going to just their biology class and not just their algebra class. Their exposure to classrooms is going to be involving multiple disciplines in that real world context. And then thinking about alternative or performance-based assessments. So instead of a multiple choice test, perhaps the students could have an assessment that has them provide evidence otherwise that learning has taken place. Thinking about family members, so needing to have family members involved in the student experiences in STEM education. So as an educational leader, we can think about what are some ways to solve this problem. Well, we can disseminate social media and newsletters regarding integrative STEM programming. We can have a STEM day, some kind of a culminating activity where families can come in with their students and participate in STEM projects. And family connection home activities. So instead of having the families come to the school, bringing those activities home with the families. And then lastly, community partner. They also have a similar need where they need to be involved in the students' integrative STEM experience. So some options here, we can invite those community partners to join the STEM leadership or advisory team. We can welcome the partners to integrate STEM expertise into the classroom. So we can bring those community partners as part of the curricula. We can also look at extended learning opportunities. So having field trips, having mentorships, having work-based or service-based learning opportunities for students. So since we can't have quite a discussion on this, this is something that you might be able to think about though. For incorporating college and career readiness and integrative STEM education into your school or into your district, how could you anchor design thinking as the way to try to solve a potential problem that you may be experiencing? So you may be experiencing some challenges that we had mentioned earlier, such as teacher buy-in or funding, or professional learning for teachers, or having community partners that are on board with integrative STEM programming. Think about how you could incorporate design thinking as a way to try to get through those types of challenges.
All right. So I'm Rachel, and thank you, Krista, for getting us started in thinking about integrative STEM and the design thinking process. We also want to talk with you about domains and leadership responsibilities related to integrative STEM and integrative STEM leadership. Both Krista and I have done a number of years of research and better understanding what are those key skills, competencies, and strategies and areas of knowledge that educational leaders, whether they're principals, superintendents, assistant principals, teacher leaders, need to have and understand in order to lead and guide and sustain a powerful and meaningful integrative STEM program to promote career and college readiness so that our students are ready for the workforce in higher ed when they transition out of high school. And we have identified 4 different domains and responsibilities, which we will be discussing. So those responsibilities include innovational responsibility, organizational responsibility, instructional responsibility, and social responsibility. So when we're looking at organizational responsibility within that domain, there are 4 key areas that we hope that integrative STEM leaders focus on. And those include mission and culture, infrastructure, professional learning, and evaluation. So when we're thinking about mission and culture, educational leaders need to guide and support moving a school in a positive direction towards integrative STEM, and that is inclusive of all stakeholders. So you want to include community partners, parents, and students, as we mentioned before. And when we're thinking about infrastructure, educational leaders are responsible to guide and foster and facilitate creating meaningful learning spaces for our students and places for collaboration and creative thinking, both for students and for our teachers. When we're thinking about professional learning, there should be ongoing professional learning happening for teachers and stakeholders in lieu of professional development sessions that are a one-time opportunity. There should be ongoing for that. And then with evaluation, we want to think about different ways for STEM programs to be evaluated and what types of continuous learning opportunities there are to continue that evaluation process moving forward. So we can look at some examples of how leaders can meet the domain of organizational responsibility in the next slide. So when we're thinking about mission and culture, educational leaders can most definitely build a STEM leadership team, which is inclusive of folks working in the schools, students, families, but also community partners. And leaders should be gathering feedback and using that feedback from stakeholders to inform their decisions. When we're thinking about infrastructure, leaders should provide a space for students to build and tinker, thinking about maker spaces or outside learning environments. And also the technological infrastructure should be available for students to ensure that they have access to online resources, both at school and at home. When we're thinking about professional learning, leaders need to invest in time and resources to provide those opportunities for teachers. And leaders are facilitators of that professional learning. Instead of having a formal presentation, leaders can facilitate professional learning opportunities where teachers and community partners and other stakeholders are involved and engaged in active learning throughout professional learning opportunities. And then in evaluation, using formative and summative assessments are critical, and also ensuring that evaluators know what they are looking for in terms of pedagogical content knowledge and really understanding that for STEM education. The next domain is innovational responsibility. So within this domain, we focus on leaders' knowledge, skills, and competencies in creative thinking, problem solving, entrepreneurialism, and collaboration. So within creative thinking, we want to ensure that leaders are providing opportunities for educators to collaborate and work with community partners, business partners in developing innovative lessons that are creative. And problem solving is related to leaders encouraging educators to provide students with opportunities to identify real-world problems and solving solutions for those problems. So that could be within their community, on a statewide scale, national scale, or an international scale. Within entrepreneurialism, we want to make sure that leaders are promoting innovation and teamwork with families, educators, and partners in order to make sure that students are well prepared for their 21st century environment for their workforce development and higher ed work. And then with collaboration, leaders should be responsible for encouraging and fostering positive, collaborative learning environments for educators, community partners, and other stakeholders to come together and share ideas. So we can look at some examples of innovational responsibility directly related to integrative STEM here. In creative thinking, we want to provide collaborative time for leaders and teachers to work together to develop integrative STEM curricula. In problem solving, we want to engage community partners to solve industry problems and think about professional learning that promotes problem solving approaches such as the design thinking process, which Krista spoke about earlier. In entrepreneurialism, we want to support innovative practices for teachers, community partners, bringing stakeholders in as well, and we want to commercialize that work. So making sure that the work that we're doing in schools is shared throughout the community is important to get that stakeholder buy-in there. And then we focus on collaboration, so providing support for students and educators to work together and share ideas, and ensuring that support staff and teachers also have a voice throughout integrative STEM programming is critical. In the third domain, we focus on instructional responsibility. So within instructional responsibility, we have curriculum, instruction, assessment, and programming. So within those areas in curriculum, we want the educational leaders to make sure that curricula is timely, it's relevant, it's aligned with standards in STEM disciplines. Within instruction, educational leaders need to help educators find ways to deliver and facilitate multiple different types of modes of integrative curriculum and programming. Within assessment, educational leaders should encourage the use of formative and summative assessments, similar to what we spoke about within evaluation. Within programming, educational leaders are responsible for providing opportunities for encouragement for STEM programs and courses. And we'll look at some examples of instructional responsibility next. So within curriculum, there should be purposeful integration within STEM or STEAM or other disciplines. And there should be opportunities for work-based, service-based, or mentorship experiences for students. And then in instruction, we focus on supporting students to work collaboratively in small groups, develop some teamwork skills and leadership responsibilities there. And within assessment, we're focusing on allowing for alternative and performance-based assessments rather than traditional assessments as the only way of assessing students, because we want to ensure that the assessments are meaningful, relevant, and naturally differentiated to meet each student's needs. Within programming, we focus on communication and ensuring that all students have opportunities to communicate and share ideas about STEM topics and courses. And we want to allow for time and supplies and resources for students to explore STEM skills. And then that final domain is social responsibility, which is critical. All the responsibilities are very important, but these social responsibility areas go across the board with the other responsibilities that we focus on. So equity and inclusion, leaders need to ensure that students have equitable opportunities in STEM and there are inclusive practices in place. Within community engagement, we're focusing on building and fostering sustainable relationships with community and business partners. Within stakeholder involvement, we want to make sure that students, parents, community members, graduate students at a local university, other business or industry leaders are a part of the decision-making process in conversations about integrative STEM and what they want to see in their educational programs throughout the school. In extended learning, we're focused on educational leaders providing and identifying meaningful opportunities for students to engage in learning outside of the regular school day. So that could include after school programs, before school programs, different types of clubs, weekend programs, or even summer programs for students to engage in STEM learning. So here are some examples that we can talk about here. So equity and inclusion includes the focus of making sure that students have a sense of belonging and acceptance in their learning and in their learning environment. We want to make sure that community partners who represent diverse populations of students are also engaged in the work that we're doing at schools. Within community engagement, we want to focus on building strong, robust partnerships with community partners in STEM who may have some expertise in that area to help enrich the curriculum, and they may have resources, funding, or sponsorship opportunities. Within stakeholder involvement, we're thinking about ways to communicate and share the word of what we're doing in schools and what's important for leaders. So that includes newsletters or social media and inviting stakeholders to be a part of the advisory team or a STEM leadership team. And then in extended learning opportunities, there's after school clubs, teams, summer camps, field trips, and also the family connections and the community connections that can be built through those extended learning opportunities that leaders can focus on. So in summary, here are the 3 key takeaways that we have. Leaders and educators should foster flexible learning environments that encourage risk and innovation. Learning should not be in content silos, and project design or problem-based learning can support this type of learning. And collaboration amongst teachers, students, community partners, and educational leaders is critical. So this runs across the board from pre-K to 12th grade, and focusing on career and college readiness. Leaders are really responsible for guiding this environment of learning to ensure that all students have equitable and inclusive learning environments to explore, take risks, innovate, be creative, and think critically, and be collaborative in the work that they're doing to be prepared for the workforce and higher education. So we are curious what questions you have for us.
All right, well, thank you so much, Rachel and Krista, for sharing that wonderful information with us. We've got plenty of time left for Q&A. All you need to do to participate is open the questions panel in your GoToWebinar control panel, type in the question you wish to ask Rachel or Krista, and we'll make sure we get an answer for you. We had somebody who lost audio midway through, but hopefully they were able to rejoin us on the phone.
And while you're thinking of questions, I do want to point out that within STEM integrations and the work that Krista and I are doing, we've done several studies within our state, nationally and internationally related to STEM. And we do have a book that will be published in the spring related to STEM leadership. But we offer different types of services, and if you have questions about some of these other areas, we're happy to support you. So those include STEM or STEAM school certification, professional development, different types of learning opportunities. We can provide public speaking, grant writing services, leadership retreats, curricula writing, educational research, educational audits, and much more. So if you have any questions about any of the other services we can provide or any topic related to career and college readiness in STEM, we are happy to support you.
All right, great. You got your contact information. Here we got a question coming in. Thank you for the overview. Do you all have any resources that you could share that may offer these types of partnerships with and for high school students?
So for actual resources, yes, we can provide some off the top of my head. There are some sources in the literature. I can think of, there is one business here in Indiana where they are actually building a website that provides nonprofits an opportunity to reach out to high school students, and with these opportunities for students to come and work with the nonprofits and get that work-based and service-based learning. I'm trying to think of the website off the top of my head. Rachel, do you by any chance remember it?
Yeah, it's called Explorador.
Florida,
And
yeah.
so the idea is there are multiple different doors or of opportunities for students in terms of career pathways. And so the website provides information for students regarding different types of career paths, and they're organized in categories related to the jobs that they're interested in. And then if you click on one of the doors, then information related to that job. For instance, if it's in an engineering field, there may be some information from Cummins about internship or summer opportunities or higher ed opportunities in engineering. I'll pull up that link for you. Just one moment.
Another thought, since we have people here from different states, your state's workforce development at the state level, so looking at the state government and how they're supporting K through 12 education and adult learners in getting mentorships and service-based learning opportunities. So that might also be a resource at the state level that you might be able to explore.
All right, great. Rachel, will you want me to put that link into the chat?
Yes,
There,
please.
got it. Let me paste it into the chat so our audience can get to it.
Oh, and I just thought of another resource. I need to look it up real fast, but if you Google Ohio, let's see here. So if you Google Community Partnerships, Ohio Department of Education, they actually have an incredible model for building and sustaining community partnerships. And so they identify a lot of the barriers that exist and have a series of action plans that educational leader can think about in developing different opportunities for students and community partners.
All right, that's
It's
great.
called, I'm afraid to put the link in, I might lose everybody. It's the Ohio Community Collaboration Model.
I'll type that into the chat. Ohio Community Collaboration Model.
For school improvement.
Got it.
And that's a great resource.
All right, and it looks like that's all the questions we've got for you at this time. Appreciate everyone joining in for the webinar that was recorded. I will be sending out a link to the recording today or tomorrow. This is also, if you attended live, you do get 1 hour of professional development credit. There will be a link to an evaluation that once completed will send you the ISB evidence of completion form if you're an Illinois educator. You are free to close the GoToWebinar control panel, and that will log you out of the session for today. Take care, everybody, and have a great rest of the afternoon. And thanks, Rachel and Krista.
Thank you.
Thank you.